So as of May 22nd, 2025, you can now officially put SteamOS on devices that are not the Steam Deck, whether it be the ROG Ally, the ROG Ally X, or the Lenovo Legion Go and the Lenovo Legion Go S, which the Go S actually ships with a SteamOS version. However, I did try SteamOS on my ROG Ally, and I would recommend waiting if you have a system that shipped with Windows because, well, let's talk about it. A little while back, I made a video talking about the ROG Ally and my experience with Windows as a whole. And Windows on the ROG Ally is kind of a mixed bag. I don't particularly like Windows to begin with, and it just kind of didn't sit well with me that even on a gaming handheld, I still got advertisements for Office 365. You could still unintentionally swipe in and get the news app when you're just trying to game, and it came with its normal Windows isms, and so just was not a big fan of that personally. Don't get me wrong though, I do know several people who prefer Windows on this just because they want more of a gaming laptop experience with the controllers built in, but for me, I want this to be more of a video game console and not a Windows PC. Think of it more like the Nintendo Switch, except I own it, I can play games on it and modify things without getting it banned remotely, and I can actually install whatever software I want, including the operating system, which is why SteamOS coming out for these devices instead of just the Steam Deck is so important. Granted, if I could have it my way, I would just play all my games on macOS, but we know how macOS is with gaming, which is, not good. And so for a long time when it came to PC gaming, Windows was it, and unfortunately, Microsoft knew it because they have a massive percentage of the market when it comes to personal computers, and over the years they have just bloated Windows more and more and more. To again, the point that I made earlier, where even something like a gaming handheld that is just meant for gaming advertises to you about Office 365 and constantly bugs you to open up a OneDrive account, and for some reason lets you access the news app within games, and God, I hate it so much. But then Valve stepped in with the Steam Deck running SteamOS, which was a version of Linux based on Arch using the KDE interface, and it was able to play Windows games courtesy of the ProtonDB compatibility layer. And so unless you were playing a game that had some kind of anti-cheat that just couldn't play with Proton or Linux in one way or another, you could play pretty much any standard Windows game in Linux and feel no difference, or as close to no difference as possible. It was a big deal, but we did not get an official version of SteamOS until May 22nd of 2025. But so now you're probably wondering if you can install whatever you want on your ROG Ally or your Lenovo Legion Go, and if SteamOS is now out and it's so good for the Steam Deck, why am I saying to wait on installing it on something like my ROG Ally or the Lenovo Legion Go S? Well, it's because SteamOS is still very much in its early stages of being available for non-Steam Deck hardware. Let me explain. For starters, the Steam Deck is its own piece of hardware, and I know that sounds obvious to say, but it has a set of buttons specific to the Steam Deck, it has touchpads specific to the Steam Deck, and it has rear buttons specific to the Steam Deck. The ROG Ally has back buttons as well, but nothing's really been mapped to those in SteamOS yet. Same thing with the Lenovo Legion Go. There are compatibilities that are available for it, but not as many as what you would get from the Steam Deck, which is made to run natively with SteamOS. On top of that, when it comes to something like the ROG Ally, one of the more gamer things they did was put a set of RGB rings around the joysticks, and well, as of right now, there's really no way to control them natively in SteamOS. You have to add other stuff to them, which you can do, and that's the beauty of Linux, but it's not there by default. But there is one problem that is much bigger than RGB control, and it was kind of a deal breaker for me with SteamOS on my ROG Ally, and it's also apparently a problem on the Lenovo Legion Go, which is that as of right now, there is no way of natively controlling the TDP of the processor in this chip. Now, what that means is for a chip like this in the ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion Go, these use AMD's Z1 Extreme mobile processor, which can have a 10 watt, 15 watt, custom, I usually run the custom at 18, or 25 to 30 watt TDP. That's how much power the chip can draw. Now, each of these wattages is actually pretty important because on the lower end at 10 or 15 watts, You can play more basic games like FTL, or at 15 watts, you can play older games like Halo. But then when you start getting up into the more extreme stuff, you can play Forza Horizon 5 at about medium with 18 watts. And on the extreme end with something like Halo Infinite or the new Doom game, you can run it at 25 to 30 watts, depending on whether or not you're plugged in. And that is very important because that can dramatically change how your games play. From what I can tell, it seems like SteamOS prefers to run this chip at about 15 to 18 watts, but it also prefers to run the fans pretty high. I'm not 100% sure why. Don't know if that's software from SteamOS or if that's something in the BIOS that changed, but it was louder and not nearly as fast as what I could do in some other alternatives that we'll talk about here in a minute. So just not overall a great experience right out of the gate with SteamOS, which is unfortunate because I really do hope that SteamOS becomes popular enough on multiple different platforms, including standard gaming PCs, to where Windows actually starts to be not the main option for gaming. It's a pipe dream. It's probably not going to happen, but one can dream that Microsoft will actually finally have to compete in the gaming space. I am one of those people who hopes for that. But then what are you supposed to do if you really don't want to deal with Windows on your gaming handheld, but you really still want to keep the same controls Windows gives you, like TDP control and the RGB control, which in my case is mainly to turn it off? Well, I use Bazzite, and I went away from Bazzite to try SteamOS, and well, I'm back on Bazzite. For all intents and purposes, Bazzite is basically going to be SteamOS, but it is much more mature at this point. It still gets the same kind of driver updates. There's a lot of things that are exactly the same as SteamOS, including one of my favorite features, which is the standby mode. I mean, like, watch this. I'm playing Doom. You can see it's actually like playing, and I can hit the power button and the device goes to sleep. It's off. I can just put it in my bag. No big deal. Go do some other stuff. Come back later. Press the same power button, and you're right back in the game. That right there, especially for traveling where you want to just stop the game, throw it in your bag, go do something else, come back, open it up, and pick up right where you left off, is amazing. But there are other benefits as well. Bazzite has actually matured enough on these devices that when you install it, it includes a controller for your TDP and your RGB all in one application that is brought up with the rear button. So not only is it giving you TDP control and RGB control, but it's making use of the ROG Ally's proprietary buttons, and this one actually brings up the keyboard, so both are getting used. So it is actually set up to use specific pieces of hardware for your specific gaming handheld. That is freaking awesome. Now, if it sounds like I've said this stuff before, well, I appreciate that you watch my videos because I have already done a video talking about the ROG Ally running Bazzite, and I don't want to go recapping a bunch of stuff here, but when I saw that SteamOS came out for the ROG Ally and other devices like the Lenovo Legion Go, I really kind of just went all in on it. I completely wiped this device and I installed SteamOS, and as I said, the first things that I encountered were unfortunately not so great. But don't get me wrong, I think that Valve has done an incredible job of showing that Windows does not have to be the end-all be-all when it comes to gaming on anything, really. I mean, sure, it's nice to have a console experience on a handheld, but if you can bring this over to something like a gaming PC desktop or even a gaming PC laptop, the lower overhead of Linux compared to Windows could mean that you're getting more performance out of your very expensive gaming desktop. And when it comes to something like a handheld, having that lower overhead giving you more performance in games can really make a difference in your experience. The potential of SteamOS really is there, but it just needs to mature a bit more for the hardware that it is coming out for and for the hardware that will hopefully be coming out in the future. For now, I'm going to stick to Bazzite because it does have much, much more in the terms of maturity compared to SteamOS, with the ability to use the buttons that are specific to my hardware, being able to control the TDP of my device without having to find some alternative plugin to do so, and the list goes on and on. But once SteamOS becomes a viable option where I can do all of these things like TDP control and RGB control, and hopefully they fix whatever the weird fan curve is, maybe I'll go back and try SteamOS again, but I'm not going to wipe my ROG Ally the next time. I'm probably just going to try dual booting to see if it's better. But until then, I'm going to stick with Bazzite. And if you want to see what Bazzite's like on this, again, check out that video I linked earlier. It'll be down in the description as well. But for now, that's pretty much all I got to say about SteamOS. If you're interested in it, you can try it out, but I would hold off on using it as your main gaming OS just because it has a bit more maturing to do. But let me know what you all think down in the comments below. And on your way down there, maybe check out the video like I mentioned earlier. And if you like this video, maybe leave it a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And I've got a lot of stuff coming, including a big update. There's some big things going on in my life that are going to change some of the core aspects of this channel. So keep an eye out for that when it comes out. But until then, thank you all so much for watching this video. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Make sure to be there, and have a good one.